Turn off your cell phones. Turn off your cell phones.
That's what I'm doing.
All right. So, thank you and welcome everybody. I'm Betty Lehman, and it's really my pleasure to have all of you in my house. And one thing I must say, I do not want any of this food left. So please either eat now or we'll get little baggies and you can take it all with you. But have a little refrigerator. We're not going to keep it here. So thanks for coming and being here with us tonight. I really wanted to thank the co-host of this event tonight, and that's Christy Blakely. Christy back there. Yay! Yeah. Dr. Frank Lum. Very good. Woohoo! Did Randy Chapman? I didn't see Randy. Okay. Julie Farrar. Hooray! And Michael Frank, Dr. Michael Frank.
He's not making it.
He didn't make it? Okay. And Ray Flesher and Betty Harris. There they are. All right. You're the other Betty in Ken's cell phone. All right. Lloyd Lewis is a sponsor, but he didn't make it here tonight. Doug Linkhart. Where's Doug? Back there. Yay! And Frank Lucero. Frank, are you here? Didn't make it? Okay. Where's Carol Meredith? There she is. Carol! Ivan was wondering where you were. And Ivan Miller. Where is Ivan?
Right there.
There's Carol.
Thank you.
Dr. Christopher Ott. Did you make it?
Just left.
He had to, oh, I'm so sorry. Owen! Where's... Yay! Owen! Yay! And Pam Reed, Goddess Catering, and that was Mary Jo.
My daughter's.
Yay!
Oh,
that was very good. Thank you. And Pauline Reeds. Pauline?
She just left, yeah.
Julie couldn't make it. Julie Riskin. Barry Rosenberg. There he is. All right. And Mary Jo. Yes, Mary Jo. Thank you. Mark Simon. All right. And last but certainly not least, Kelly Stallman. Yay, Kelly. All right. Thanks, everybody. This is really so great that everybody would come together in support of Irene. The disability community, we need our champions, and we have our champion here with us tonight, and we are very, very grateful to you because we need you and you're there for us, and you know you're not going away either. So that's why we're here tonight, is to make sure that Irene is going to be there for us now and in the future. And it's my privilege at this point to introduce one of my favorite people in the room and in the world. And former Senate Majority Leader Ken Gordon, who is my personal hero and champion. And so, without further ado, Ken Gordon, yay!
This has been an interesting experience already for me. Before I was in the legislature, I used to practice law, and I did two things. I defended people who were accused of crime, and I sued negligent people who injured other people. I had one case where a mobile home fell on somebody because the concrete block under the home was deficient. It was not strong enough, and that person survived but was severely injured, and I was able to get him a good amount of money. And I had another case where I represented people protesting against aid to the Contras sitting in Senator Armstrong's office, and we were allowed to use a choice of evils defense, which was that the crime they were trying to stop, which was murder and mayhem in Central America, was less serious than sitting in Senator Armstrong's office. And Mark Simon was my client. He's the one that the mobile home fell on. And Nelson Bach was my client. He's the one of the people that was sitting in Senator Armstrong's office. And I also represented American Indians who protested against the Columbus Day Parade. And there's a woman here named Zoe who was at that trial. She was 7 years old when she was at that trial. She just told me.
An idealist from the beginning.
You won all those cases, right?
I did. I was the lawyer of choice for people arrested in civil disobedience in the 1980s because I didn't charge anything and I usually won. Betty, I met Betty walking door to door in my first election campaign. Eli was young, and he was, at that time, he was hypersensitive to light and sound, and Betty was home alone, taking care of him with all the shades drawn, and she couldn't have a television on or a radio on or even a phone ring in her house because he was so sensitive to sound and light. And I knocked on the door and I said, "Hi, I'm running for the state legislature." And she said, "Come in here. You've got to see how I'm living. You've got to do something about this."
Scared the willies out of him. Kept him in there for an hour and a half.
At that time, we were both married to other people. And but about 10 years later, we weren't. And Betty stalked me.
Yeah.
So we started to date, and after about 4 or 5 months, I said to her, "Is there any legislation you'd like me to carry?" And I didn't realize that she'd been dying to tell me that she wanted me to carry legislation for her. So I carried a bill in
2004.
2004.
Yeah, that was
2004, which got money for the treatment of autism. It was a waiver from Medicaid, so that you didn't have to be indigent in order to get treatment for children with autism. And about just a few months ago, Betty and I were at a fundraiser for a political candidate, and I saw Betty talking to one of the caterers, and she was talking to her for a long time. And I know from previous experience that the woman might not have been as interested in the topic as Betty was. So I walked over and I said, "Betty, you should let this woman do her job. You know, she's going to get fired." And the woman said, "No, that's okay. I own the company." And she had a child with autism. Is why they were talking. And I said, "How's your child doing?" And she said, "Well, great, because she's on this autism waiver program and been able to get services, and she's doing fabulous." And that was the bill that Betty and I carried.
Yay. And Carol.
Carol too.
Yes.
And that bill, I mean, and this is sort of a lesson for everybody because you're all going to be involved in the future. That bill was shortly after 9/11. There was no money for anything, and when we went to, I got over 50 sponsors, but it still was fated to die in the Appropriations Committee. And we got to the Senate Appropriations Committee, and Dave Owen, who was chair of the committee, apologized at the beginning of the committee, and he said, "I'm sorry, there's no money. All the bills like yours are dead. So you can go ahead with the hearing. I just want you to know that I'm sorry." What he didn't know was that Betty had arranged the night before to have a constituent of Ken Klober, who was a right-wing, well, he was a conservative, since he's the hero of the story. Since he's the hero of the story, I have to change my language. The night before, a constituent of his had called him and engaged him for an hour, just telling their own personal story to him about their living with a child with autism, and he, on that day, voted with us, and we passed the bill out of Senate Appropriations, and we passed the bill, which was a huge, it was the only bill that year that passed that cost money, that was a new bill, a new program that cost money, the only one. And Betty and the Autism Society were able to do that on numerous occasions, to mobilize constituents in a particular legislator's district that we needed that vote to call and tell their personal story. It's very powerful. And people don't feel empowered these days in the legislature. But that particular kind of work does work. And you should all know that you can get bills passed if you do that kind of homework. So I once said that as far as having influence in the building, the National Rifle Association is very influential in the Colorado General Assembly. They're second, and the Autism Society's first. So anyway, I'm very proud to be speaking for Irene today. My view, and this is, I'm going to say without any modesty, that I think what I'm about to tell you is the most important thing you're going to hear this week. Because of
But
the
it's only Tuesday.
right, because of the Supreme Court decisions that way expand the scope of the First Amendment beyond any conceivable policy purpose that the Founding Fathers had, it's impossible for any legislative body in the United States to restrict the influence of money in politics. It just can't be done by law anymore. But it still can be done. We can restrict the influence of money in politics by ourselves supporting candidates who don't take special interest money. Irene's one of 7 members of the Colorado General Assembly that does not take that money. Just by being here tonight and supporting her, you are helping save democracy from huge money interests that operate without human values. You know, corporations have a purpose to be involved in business and create products and be involved in commerce, but they don't have compassion, they don't have vision for the future, they don't care about education or healthcare or people with disabilities. They're not supposed to, it's not their job. But by the Supreme Court allowing them to be huge players in the political process, it takes all of those values, it reduces their influence in the political process. And the only way we can combat that is by advancing the careers of candidates who have those values and are not just in it for to be a legislator and take money from wherever they can get it. So this is hugely important. There's no other way anymore. The Supreme Court's taken away other ways. The only way we can do this is by supporting these candidates. And one of the sign-up sheets, and if you haven't signed it, I'd like you to before you leave, is Clean Slate Now, which a few people and I just started, which is it's a website and it's a nonprofit that's going to support candidates who don't take special interest campaign contributions. And in the 2012 cycle, Clean Slate Now is going to help several candidates win who don't take special interest money against candidates who do take special interest money. Candidates only care about one thing, well, mostly one thing. They care about winning the election. If taking special interest money and having that money makes them win, that's what they'll do. If not taking it makes them win, that's what they'll do. So the purpose of Clean Slate Now is to make the acceptance of that money poison for a candidate's future, and we're going to put on the website the candidates that don't take the money, like Irene, and the ones that do. And we're about to change, we're involved in changing the political dynamic in favor of the most important things we all care about. So, apologize for taking a minute to talk about my own project, but Irene cares for it too. So anyway, I'm proud to speak for her tonight. I'm proud to be a co-host of this event, and we're going to be supporting her as long as she stays in the legislature. So thank you very
much. You've got hugs from 2 beautiful women now. Thank you all so much for coming. You know, I still remember, my husband probably does as well, after our daughter Amy was born, we knew pretty early on that she would have special needs. And people would come up because they didn't know what to say, and they say, "It's such a blessing, you know, God has given you a blessing." And when you're first there and you're not sleeping and your kid's in the NICU, you're thinking, really? You know, and I have to admit, and Kelly may not have gotten there, no, I'm kidding, it probably took 4 or 5 years before we got over the being overwhelmed part and could see what people meant by it being a blessing. And what I think, to me, the biggest blessing of it is that it really makes you refocus on what's important in life. And I guess for me what's really important is having a community, having people who love you, and whatever it is that keeps you happy. We learned early on that we really wanted our daughter to have an ordinary life in any way that we could. And the interesting thing for me about that journey was that I'd grown up in inner city Chicago in a very white neighborhood, and Chicago's pretty known for being racist and segregated, and so I experienced a lot of discrimination as a Hispanic child, but I didn't realize how little I had experienced until I went around with my daughter who was disabled. And I thought, wow, you know, there are people who have it worse than people of color. They get discriminated against routinely, and people don't think twice about it. And it became my mission to try and be sure that everybody got treated with dignity and respect, no matter what they thought, what they believed in, who they were, and it was because of Amy that I ended up on the Developmental Disabilities Council, which led me to Mark and Christy and the Vulnerable Populations Task Force, which led me to advocating for universal health care, which led me here. So maybe that was the blessing of Amy. No, I'm kidding. But I wanted just to say I think that government has gotten a bad name. And I think that people have forgotten that the reason we have a government is to protect the people, and to give people the chance and opportunity to move forward in their lives. And people means everybody, it doesn't mean just certain people. And so I'm hoping to go around preaching the gospel of why government is good, and have people understand the value of government and the value that all of us bring to society. So I thank you so much for coming out tonight and for supporting me. So I wanted to give you a little heads up. Next year, my disability bill, if you will, is that I want to run a bill to make it clear that vouchers are illegal in the state of Colorado for education. I can tell you that it's not equal access for people who are disabled, and we need to be sure that people are aware of that. And so I'm working very closely with the Division of Human Services and Healthcare Policy and Financing, and really want to work at changing this medical model of long-term care for people with developmental disabilities into a person-centered, community-based model. We live in a new world, and we need to just adjust to it, and so I'm hoping to help get funding for that and be intricately involved in that legislative process as well. So, and one of the wonderful things about being a senator is that when somebody treats somebody like a jerk and they write to me, and I write to that department, I get an answer. So if you feel like the government is giving you a hard time, write to me, because I really want to know, and I really want to hold people accountable, because I think sometimes people get in a job and they forget that they're actually there to be servants of the public, and we need to help remind them of that. So thank you all for coming, and thanks for all your support. I would be happy to take questions if you want. Do you want to do that, or Kelly?
I would just like to offer a point of thanks. At 6 o'clock Sunday night, Irene heard about a meeting at Medicaid regarding my family. And at 3 o'clock yesterday, she was at the department in the middle of 16 people having a conversation that will keep our family intact. So thank you for your responsiveness, and thank you for the work that you're going to do on behalf of everyone.